Welcome in, everybody. It's time for the finals here at the NRG Championship Series in Lansing. I'm Corbin Hosler, joined by my co-host, Devin Doomwake O'Donnell, and we're joined by all of you. Thank you for hanging out with us through this Team Trios 10K. We've watched Modern, we've watched Popper, we've watched a little bit of Standard when we need to, and we've had fun doing it. And let's check out that bracket that has led us here to the finals. All that remain, we saw Newman, Sabor, Castellani, Canfor, Cates, Nimitz, Clayton, Kowalski, Alford, Harvey, Yazeri, Niguera. That was one side of the top eight. On the other, we saw the team of Dykman, Suleiman, Smith, Hayes, Johnson, Coonan, Geertz, Bolger, Van Til, Chavez, Bellamy, and Chelly. And all that remains now is to crown a winner, and that's going to be, as we just saw, the team of Sam Clayton, Will Kowalczyk, Garrett Alford, or coming from the other side, Hayes, Johnson, Coonan. That is who is going to be squaring off in the finals here in Lansing. But coming up after Lansing, for all of you who want to get out and play, come to Mundelein, Illinois, 3 weeks from now, September 13th and the 14th. It's a 10K Modern Showdown. Remember, the Pro Tour next month is Modern as well, so there's going to be a lot of eyes on that format, and it is pretty wide open from what I have seen recently. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. But hey, after Saturday comes Sunday, and after Modern comes Legacy. Make sure to check that out for the 2.5K event. We love Legacy. And after Illinois, we are headed from Mundelein to Elmhurst after that, where it will be the return of teams for another 10K team showdown. This time it will be sealed, taking up that third seat. We had Popper this week. It'll be sealed at that event, and then followed by another 10K Modern Showdown. That's November 1st and the 2nd in Elmhurst, Illinois. So that is where we are headed. Where we are now is in the finals here in Lansing.
Yep, and we are going to be, looks like players are just reviewing deck lists real quick, but we're going to take a look at the matchup here. So on the left-hand side of your screen, we have Fletcher Johnson playing the Gruul Brood Scale deck, and on the right-hand side, Will Kowalczyk playing Neobrand. So we just saw Will in the previous matchup playing against Boros, and we are going to be seeing how Will does against this Brood Scale deck. Now, as far as the matchup is concerned, two combo decks, so maybe a little bit of ships passing in the night, not a ton of interaction on either side. So it's really going to be about who can sort of deploy their combo the fastest. Now, there's an interesting sort of, point about this particular matchup where, you saw Will in the last game just go Neoform, put a Gristlebrand into play and pass the turn, right? Because the Gristlebrand is just sort of a kill by itself against the Boros deck. There's not really a lot of ways the Boros deck can answer a Gristlebrand.
Right.
But if he does that against Fletcher, there's a chance that that might not be good enough because Fletcher can just untap and actually kill him on the following turn. So Will is going to really need to sort of, set up that combo turn where you're putting Galta into play. Galta puts more stuff into play, something like a Xenagos. Xenagos can set up the haste OTK. So is really going to have to, sort of prioritize that instead of just like, here's a Gristlebrand or some other big doofus and pass the turn. Because I feel like that's maybe not going to be good enough against Fletcher.
Yeah. Fletcher, of course, by the way, hailing from the team Popper, I hardly know her. And Will, of course, coming to you from the team Will and his credentials.
Yeah, well, there's Will. So his credentials being Sam and Garrick. Sam playing the VV Cauldron deck, Garrick playing Mono Blue Fairies. And then on the other side, Ryan, who lost in the finals of yesterday's standard event, playing, you guessed it, VV Cauldron, shocker, and Jake Coonan on the Popper side playing Blue Terror. So hopefully, when we'll get to see a little bit of that Popper game, the Blue Terror versus the Blue Fairies. Basically, both decks are mono blue. They do share some similar cards like counter spells and whatnot, but in terms of that matchup specifically, Garrick is a lot more about playing to the battlefield early and often with the cheap flyers and ninjas, and Jake is all about, counterspell, maybe a couple of cantrips down the road, stuff like Mental Note and Thought Scour, to enable not only Talarian Terror, but also the other Talarian Terror, the sort of the Wish.com Talarian Terror in the
Yeah.
form of Cryptic Serpent, which similar, but it does cost double blue.
Yeah, I think I misspoke earlier. I said Harrison had played the most Magic this weekend. Turns out it might be Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah, Ryan making the finals of both days. We almost had a Ryan Hayes versus Harrison Canfor rematch in the finals of the standard event, which would have been pretty funny.
Yeah, true. That would have actually been great. Could have run it back for the actual rematch. Very not very often you get that. But all right, we're going to start here in Modern. Looks like players get into their opening hands. You can see some of what they're playing for. Of course, they're on the table, the Championship Series trophy. And I love that we got it right there. Put the piles of cash in the middle of the table. Let's do it
Oh
all.
yeah. Just like poker, when they
Yeah.
have the final table, final two players at a poker table, they just put the cash right in the middle. Love to see it. It's a nice looking trophy, I will say that. All right, what do we got for opening hands? Now, as far as the seeding is concerned, that is the one advantage here for Will. Pretty, sizable advantage when you're playing a combo mirror, being in the play. Shocker, very, very important. And because of that, I think Fletcher is going to be, not just because of the matchup, but also because he is on the draw, just aggressively mulliganing to that really, really fast combo kill that Brood Scale can offer.
Hmm.
We haven't seen a lot of Brood Scale, so I'll maybe kind of just go over the actual combo. The
Yeah.
two pieces involved are Basking Brood Scale and Blade of the Blood Chief. So the idea is that Blade of the Blood Chief says whenever a creature dies, you put a counter on the creature. It's an equipment, so puts a counter on the equipped creature. And then Brood Scale says whenever it gets a counter, you make a spawn token. The spawn can be sacrificed for mana. So you sack the spawn, get a counter on the Brood Scale, make a spawn, sack the spawn, so on and so forth. So that gets you infinite colorless mana and an infinitely large Brood Scale. And then the infinite colorless mana can be put into something like a Walking Ballista or a Kozilek's command to find the Walking Ballista and then sort of one-shot your opponent from there.
Yeah, it's one of the decks that sort of quietly started existing after Modern Horizons 3. Obviously, it was drowned out by the Nadus of the day and the Boros energies of the hour. But these days, it's one of the better decks in the format, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and there's been this interesting evolution of the Bird Scale deck where when that card first came out in MH3, a lot of players quickly realized the combo, and it was sort of maybe more of like an all-in fringe combo deck that was just playing, Bird Scale and
Right.
a bunch of ways to find the combo pieces. And
Chords and
it's
stuff like that. Yeah.
exactly. And it's sort of morphed over time into this sort of hybrid, like ramp plus combo deck where, Fletcher has the Basking Brood Scales, the Blade of the Blood Chiefs, the Ancient Stirrings and Rumbles to find those. But then he's also playing Eldrazi Temple, Emrakul the Promised End, Writhing Chrysalis, and it sort of gives you this sort of like different angle of attack where Fletcher can, in the more fair matchups where his combo is being under duress, maybe can play more towards that fair game. Although probably not going to see a lot of the fair
Not
this
this
matchup,
one.
I would say.
No, that is a great explanation, though. Not to make the comparison necessarily, because I don't want anyone who's more familiar with the format to tell me I'm terribly wrong. But look, kind of like the Eldrazi-tron, where we take the idea of the two ideas of decks, smash them together, and you end up with something that has a low end and a top end, right? Or in this case, a ramp plan and a combo plan. So it's often a way of building successful decks. Going back to when I started playing Magic, Jerry T making Dark Depths Thopter Foundry combo deck, where he took two different archetypes that were having some success, found the overlap between them, and the parts that truly mattered, which in the case of the Brood deck are simply the Brood parts of the combo. Realize that you can also do that with Urza Saga, and now all of a sudden you can just do that nearly for free in your deck that gets all the power of the Eldrazi archetype. And you're going to need it all in this case, Fletcher, because he did take, it looks like, a mulligan down just to 5 cards, possibly even 4. Yeah, 4 cards. So that's a rough one.
Yeah, I mean, mulligan to 4 sounds brutal, and I'm not going to lie, it is. But, with Fletcher's deck, he really is only trying to assemble A plus B, and he has a lot of ways to find A and a lot of ways to find B. And you see the Urza Saga in play, even if he doesn't find a copy of Blade of the Blood Chief, the Urza Saga can go and tutor one. So that is sort of a way to kind of get that, even if you don't draw it. So that's effectively 8 copies of that. And then the Brood Scale's not a direct way to tutor it like Saga for Blade, but stuff like Stirrings and Rumble can dig you a little bit deeper to find that Brood Scale. And I think I saw Blade in Fletcher's hand, so we already have that rolled up too.
Yeah, and he's got the Soul Guide Lantern in the main deck here. Of course, that's one of those pieces you can just go find with your Saga that sometimes come in quite handy. In worst case scenario, you can cycle the thing, which may be where we're at here. This is some Gristlebrand matchups. Soul Guide Lantern would be quite good, but not.
I know, right? Yeah,
not this particular one.
Usually, when your opponent's trying to cheat big stuff into play, Graveyard Hate's good, but not here. And another aspect of this Brood Scale deck, kind of leading into that fair plan, as you mentioned, is Urza Saga, where it's this card that acts as a combo piece because it can tutor up the Blade, but then also can be this fair tool where against decks that are heavy on interaction and counter spells, you can just make a bunch of Saga tokens. But again, Saga tokens probably not going to matter that much in this matchup.
Yeah. All right. Well, Malevolent Rumbling, so is
okay,
because you're gonna. We are working towards A and B, and point C is getting them together, and we're not terribly far off.
Yeah, Fletcher has A and B rolled up. Now, the only thing I guess I mentioned it's an A plus B combo. It's actually kind of A plus B plus C.
Yeah, you're gonna need to pay
where so Fletcher next turn can set up the Blade and Brood Scale stuff to make infinite mana and infinitely large Brood Scale, but without a way to actually convert that infinite mana, is just going to pass with a 69 Brasking Brood Scale, and that's probably not going to be good enough because Will can maybe kill him on the following turn.
Math checks out.
Oh my goodness, I think he drew a Kozilek's Command Corp. I think this is going to be a multi-4 turn 3 win.
Welcome to Modern.
Now, looking at Will's deck list in terms of, well, I shouldn't say that because there are 4 copies of Consign to Memory in the main deck here for Will.
And there's one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got a bit of a different game here, but you know what? Regardless, that is what was lined up. So very impressive. But the Consign to Memory, all-star of the format, Will has it in the main deck. A little bit of interaction. And, we've been talking a lot about the Brood Scale deck. Will's just been kind of hanging out over there. Didn't go for any kind of Out of Source Rider, Neoform shenanigans. Didn't mulligan to 4. Just kind of hung back, but had a Consign to Memory here for the Urza Saga. And that is significantly complicated, I think, what Fletcher was hoping to do. Does get 2 mana out of the temple, though.
Yeah, kind of. So obviously, Will doesn't know this, but Fletcher has the Blade in hand. So from Will's perspective, the Consign stopping the Urza Saga is fantastic. Ooh, we're going to go for a Pact of Negation on the Blade. Okay. And this is so the funny thing about
there we go.
The funny thing about Pact of Negation, you might think of, oh well, Will cast Pact of Negation and you're just going to lose on his upkeep, but Will can sort of build his own force of will and just have consign the Pact trigger on the next turn, which is really sick.
Okay, well, the end result of all of that, which is, I have to say, there was a lot of fun interaction on what could have just been, scoop up your cards kind of turn. But instead, it ends with a Brood Scale in play, the Blade in the graveyard, Consign Impact in Will's graveyard, still no Gristlebrands to be found, and I guess, well, we've got this Grizzly Bear here.
Beatdowns, Plan B. Look, you got to cross the finish line somehow.
By the way, shout out to the raid, by the way, coming in from Anu with a raid of 176 on the party. Welcome into the stream, everybody. We are in the finals of the 10K team trios event in Lansing NRG Championship. It is standard, modern, and popper as our third format. And we are right into the finals here. This is game one between Fletcher Johnson on the left, team name Popper, I hardly know her, and Will Kowalczyk on the right, team name Will and his credentials.
Yeah, we got an Ancient Stirrings here for Fletcher. Taking a look at, I think I saw an Emrakul pulled up to the front. So, thinking about card types in Graveyard, we have Blade, which is an artifact, Urza Saga, which is an enchantment land, the Rumble, which is a sorcery, and I think there's a Flesh Raker in there as well for a creature. So I believe 5 types. So a little bit of a ways away from that Emrakul. So decides to go for a Saga instead. And I did say earlier that the beatdown plan is maybe not something that Fletcher is interested in, but honestly, the way this game is going and the way that Will's hand has sort of seemed to have just failed miserably, and I mean, this might be how we cross the finish line and just attack him with Brood Scales and Saga tokens.
Well, I mean, maybe, yeah, because he's got the Saga. He picked up another land, I think, off of cycling that Lantern. So, yeah, I mean, your opponent needs to put together their cards in hand to get there after burning a bunch to stop you. If you can just increase your clock by one turn, even that's a big deal, and you might even be able to get more than that out of a couple Saga activations.
Yeah, so Will, taking a look at the surveil, is going to keep it, likes what he sees. Now, presumably, given that this is interesting because Will kept his 7-card hand. There was no mulligans from Will and kept a 7-card hand and just kind of didn't do anything in the first. Well, I mean, there were some counter spells, but didn't do anything in terms of progressing his game plan in the first couple of turns. So, what I think may have happened is Will kept a hand that has the Allosaurus Rider, the green cards, and maybe a little bit of interaction, but didn't find a Neoform or an Eldritch. And potentially with the card kept on top, could be something like one of those 2 cards, and we might be seeing a large creature hit the battlefield this turn.
Yeah, you've certainly just been kind of sitting around and waiting, if you will, for something to come together as you sort of string your cards together to keep your opponent from going off on their mulligan to 4. But that, again, that shows the power of the Brood Scale deck. It also, I don't even know if you want to classify that as a failure rate of the Neo Brain deck, because it does show that the Neo Brain deck, and being a combo deck, does come with its own interaction. Consigned to Memory is just, of course, a house in the entire modern format. I think we might be in a judge call here, though, or we're just talking to our teammates about a bunch of math.
Yeah, I think we're counting. I saw some counting. I don't know if we're counting permanent types in Grave because open deck lists Will is aware of the presence of the Emrakul. So, trying to think of like, well, if Fletcher has a Kozilek's command that can put 2 more types into the grave, because I think right now it would be artifact, creature, sorcery, enchantment, land. So that's 5. If you Kozilek's command, you can do X equals 1 to make a
Right.
token. That would be 7 types. The Emrakul would cost 6 mana. And right now, with the Temple, the 1, 2, 3, 4,
5.
5. So if there's a
Yeah.
land, then we can go for Emrakul next turn, and that's what Will is debating here.
And yeah,
Oh,
after counting all of that out,
oh
very
my
decisively
goodness.
decides on a line, which is, we're gonna do it. Plays the
Okay,
Allosaurus Rider, goes and gets a Gristlebrand.
Corbin,
The reason, of course, we're talking about all of this. Go ahead.
hear me out, Corbin. So Gristlebrand. Oh, what's interesting is there's no counter. So I was going to say Neoform puts a counter on it to make it an 8/8. Then you can go attack the Brood Scale into the Gristlebrand, go up to 14 Emrakul, and then that would be a multiple of 14 for Gristlebrand. But now, and that's sort of why Will was debating there whether or not to go for Gristlebrand, because if there is an Emrakul that, maybe Fletcher could potentially just use the Gristlebrand and sort of, just pay all of Will's life to just sort of kill him in one spot. So this is, Fletcher had the option to take that Emrakul last turn, but decided against it. So maybe potentially regretting that, because I think I saw a command in hand as well. Yeah, did have the command there.
Yeah, you laid that out very well. So both players in the spot here. Okay, we're passing the turn back. Will's going to untap with Gristlebrand.
Usually a good thing. When you're untapping with Gristlebrand, usually good for that player. Now there is a Kozilek's command, so Fletcher can do X equals 4, which is not enough to take care of the Gristlebrand, but maybe do some spawns, maybe a little bit of digging, and try to see if he can find. Not sure. I mean, he is technically presenting the kill next turn because Saga can get bird scale, or Saga
Right.
can get blade equipped to bird scale, do the thing, and then you have the command as the kill spell. But you would imagine if Will's drawing, 21 cards, can probably find a way to stop that, like more packs.
Yep, and here comes Neoform again on another Allosaurus rider. This one's going to go get, is that Urini, I believe, to wipe the board. And that should theoretically remove the threat of the combo. So it sure seemed like Fletcher had a way to either get to the combo. Obviously, he had the combo, but then it seemed like he was still going to find his way to the combo, or at least his way to a fair beatdown kind of win. And it all went sideways very quickly as Will's deck went from interacting to comboing just in a heartbeat. And now it's more of a desperation, I think, command than anything from Fletcher, who needs a lot of pieces.
Yeah, so without the bird scale and now using the Kozilek's command, now Fletcher is in a position where he needs to find a bird scale and a payoff for the bird scale. Bird scale plus blade is not going to do it on its own.
And we're just going to pack the command here.
Which makes sense because if the card that Fletcher is looking for is the bird scale, and you're going to pack the bird scale anyways, he might as well just pack the Kozilek's command.
Yeah, I mean, that's the don't get any surprises that way. Don't give them a second mode or any of those things.
You ever seen Neobrand just pay 5 mana for a pact negation? I don't think I've seen that.
We're about to, unless Fletcher picks them up first. But yeah, I mean, because Fletcher is at 11 life, that is conveniently enough from from your creatures. I guess Urini could get there itself thanks to that 1/1 counter. So combo or bust here for Fletcher. And I don't even know if we can get there. Malevolent Rumblings, it looked like, was the pickup. There is a blade in hand.
You can rumble, leaving up the temple. That makes a spawn. You hit the bird scale. But then, even if he hits the bird scale, you don't have mana. Yeah.
Not going anywhere with it. And where we're heading is the game 2, or perhaps more accurately to another match. Because if you look down the right side there, Sam Clayton, Will Kowalczyk, Garrick Alford, all 3 of them picked up victories in their first game. So Will and his credentials are starting off strong. Looks like we might be able to head over. As usual, all of our matches are in sideboarding at the same time, but
every single time. How does that always happen?
Perhaps we'll come back to the booth and then maybe head down to Popper Row. Welcome into the booth. Welcome in everyone who just joined us. I appreciate that raid. I'm Corbin Hostler, joined by Devin Doomwick O'Donnell, and we have been checking out Team Trios in Lansing all weekend. Well, I should say all day long. And thank you all of you for hanging out with us. We've had a couple games of this Gristlebrand deck now, and I have to say that was probably the most impressive yet because it actually was able to just stop its opponent's turn 3 win and play, I guess, a long game for the combo deck.
Yeah, I mean, I had brought up in the before we got to the match where there wasn't a ton of interaction from either side.
Yeah.
And Will kind of proved me wrong there, using the consigns and the pact of negations at sort of the perfect time. There was the consign on the Urza Saga that stopped Fletcher from getting the first blade. There was the pact of negation that was cut the clutch as well, that same turn countering the blade, and then using the consign to counter the pact trigger. There was a lot of cool stuff there from Will. So maybe this matchup is more interactive than I thought it was.
Well, that was certainly something that maybe we didn't think that the deck could do. You think a pact of negation for just sort of protecting its own combo. You don't necessarily think of it as just paying 5 mana in my upkeep to stop you from casting your spell. But that's exactly how it worked out there. But all right, we actually have a game 3 now. Jake Coonan on your left with the blue Tolarian Terror deck against the Mono Blue Fairies deck by Garrick Alford that we've got to watch through in a round earlier today, I was really impressed by it. It did pick up the first game in quick fashion against the Terror deck, but after sideboarding, Jake was able to take it down. So here we are, game 3. The winner puts their squad on the board.
Yeah, and Garrick actually, Garrick won game 1, but actually took a loss in game 2 to Jake. And Garrick sort of designed this deck to beat up on the rest of the sort of blue decks that are designed to go bigger.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, right, from just a matchup perspective, Garrick's deck has a lot of the same interaction that Jake's does with the counter spells, but Garrett can actually play to the board faster. And more specifically, the ninjas that are in Garrick's deck, the Ninja of the Deep Hours, and the one that I always forget the name of, Moon Circuit Hacker, those
Mhm.
cards play very well against the counter spells from Jake because you can actually just ninjutsu, and ninjutsu, because it's an ability, you're not casting a spell that
Right.
gets that ninja in under the counter spells. And if it's something like Ninja of the Deep Hours, then that card being able to connect over and over again, because one, Jake doesn't have a lot of removal because mono blue, and two, Jake can't really get a big threat into play. Maybe like turn 3, turn 4 ish, and by then Garrick's already got a couple of cards off that ninja.
It looks like we may be discussing a mulligan decision here, or just maybe giving input on another game. Is Garrick here? But looks like we did maybe take at least one mulligan. Team events, of course, the the fun part, a really enjoyable part if you're a player, and I guess maybe the less fun part if you're not watching Garrick look off screen. But you get to play with your teammates. You get to help your teammates. You get to make decisions together, especially when they're important ones, like say, what hand should I keep or what should I put on the bottom of my deck in game 3 of the finals of the NRG series Team Trios 10K. So that is the discussion being had right now, as all 3 players on his team are 1 win away, in fact, from putting their team on the board here.
Well, the question is, do you think he asked Will or do you think he asked the credentials, the other credentials? See,
I don't know who's in which
credential.
seat, and you know what? That means I have plausible deniability. Don't have to answer.
That's fair.
All right, they did make that decision, and he leads off with the fairy series. See it there on your screen. Scry 2 when it comes into play. Just what a flying man looks like in the year 2025 and is playable competitively. I think that is pretty fun for Magic. And here's one, a turn 1 brainstorm.
Yeah, you don't often see a turn 1 main phase brainstorm,
You don't.
but the thing you have to realize about Pauper, there's no fetch lands, right? We're playing with comets. We're not playing with flooded strands and polluted deltas and all that stuff. So brainstorm not at its best in this format, although I will say Jake does have some ways to shuffle, most notably Lorien Revealed. So
Right.
you can kind of set this up where you go, brainstorm and then upkeep before your draw, cycle the Lorien, draw a fresh card. And Jake is actually, this version of the Terror deck is playing 4 Mental Note and 4 Thought Scour. So those are like weird ways that you can clear the top after a brainstorm.
Yeah, the Thought Scour line is nice, to be honest, because you're already incentivized to play that card, because it not only does it power up, by putting itself in the graveyard for your terrors, it can put other cards into your graveyard, discount your terrors, and the fact that you get to turn your brainstorm into an upgraded version of itself is pretty nice. And as you called it, there we go, Lorien Revealed.
Yeah, an interesting play there from Jake deciding to gut shot the Fairy Seer. Probably doesn't feel the best, just because, Garrett got a little bit of value out of that with the Scry. But Jake, understandably so, recognizes that does not want to let Garrett get to a ninja if he can avoid it. Because once the ninja's in play, it's very, very hard for his deck to answer that. Let's see if we can get that card pulled up on screen, because I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, Sleep of the
Sleep
Dead.
of the Dead. Sure. That's a
Yeah, so
pop
this
special right there. Theros Beyond Death.
Yeah, this is my unfamiliarity with Pauper. Never seen this card, but this one's interesting because you can also mill it off of something like Thought Scour or Mental Note to be able
Right.
to, tap some blockers, doesn't untap next turn, and it also can escape, right? So the Thought Scours and the Mental Notes can fuel the escape of the sleep.
certainly can buy you a lot of time at a reasonable mana cost here, and another brainstorm to set things up. So, I mean, we can see how Jake Coonan gets there. This is just a lot of small advantages being built in. The gut shot is a really nice piece there, right? Because again, it's the kind of card you already want to play in your deck, and it just happens to be really good when your opponent's deck is full of a bunch of X1s that aim to be more mana efficient than you. Pretty nice piece in that situation. So Brainstorms puts a couple cards back on top. I spot a counterspell in hand there. See what else we've got. We're going to go ahead and tap 1 mana. And what is...
Ooh, we got to get that one pulled up. I think that one is Deem Inferior. So,
okay.
yeah, this one is a really sweet card here from Modern Horizons. This is 4 mana normally, but it costs 1 less for each card you've drawn this turn. Quick math on Brainstorm, that would be 3 cards. So this would be a 1 mana. An owner of target non-land permanent gets to put it on the library second from the top or on the bottom. So this weird, like, sort of submerge-esque type thing at sorcery speed, but really, really good with the Brainstorm.
Yeah, that was nice. And it ends with a terror in play. And all of a sudden, Jake's life total is what seems to be a pretty safe 18 life, and we're just going to sleep down your creature again. Now you can't even chump block if you wanted to with that one, at least. And the race is on, and it's heavily in Jake's favor.
Yeah, thankfully for Garrick does have a counterspell for that Cryptic Serpent, another version of Tolarian Terror. But yeah, I did talk about how Garrick is like, I thought Garrick was a pretty big favorite in this matchup, just like the cheap creatures combined with the ninjas. But it seems like Jake has really sort of constructed his sideboard, like you said, the gut shots, and then as well as the main deck, the sleeps and the demon furiers, just able to utilize those to keep Garrick off of those cheap flyers, and just don't ever let him get the opportunity to ninja.
You see Bind the Monster before? You ever had that played against you?
Absolutely not, but it looks like a banger. You got to take 5, though.
Does damage to you equal to its power? Okay.
Huge chunk.
Yeah, all right.
Look, when you're playing mono blue, right?
Yeah.
You can't really be selective on your removal spells. You just gotta play with what you get.
Sometimes it's Sleep of the Dead. Sometimes it's Bind the Monster.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I guess
you don't get to play
the offense.
You don't get to play Into the Floodbond Pauper. That's an uncommon.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, until they reprint it in some commander set.
Pauper goes through a lot of upheaval because of when they moved to the downshifting mini cards rarities. It led to a lot of upheaval in Pauper, but from what I understand, thanks to good work by the Pauper committee, the format is well maintained and generally pretty enjoyed by its players.
Yeah, I mean, Dread Return is a card that's banned. Like, there's a lot of cards that are banned in Modern that you can play in this format. So a lot of people like to associate Pauper with, lower power level, but that's not really the case. Like, there's a lot of busted cards in this format.
A whole bunch of free spells.
Oh, yeah. A lot of them are banned, but...
All right, so after all of that, Garrick is going to head and we're going to add another creature to the board. And just pass the turn. So, okay, this is not a runaway for the terror. So the game is still continuing. Garrick has still got some creatures, although there goes one of them, thanks to the chump. That's a hacker is down. So we got a hacker and a 1/1 left in play, and actual Delver.
I was just going to say, when's the last time you've seen a Delver of Secrets in play? It's been a hot minute.
A Delver and a Delver deck? Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, the people in Legacy will just name their deck Delver and they'll play Barrow Goyf instead. It's like, that's not Delver. Come on, stop it.
What it is, I think it's called Cope.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, it was just a cameo for the Delver anyway, as it trades with the Moon Hacker. Now we've got a counter spell for the next 1-drop. So I think that was the last card in hand for Coonan, and the last card in hand for Garrick looks to be another bind, and that means he's alive with the only creature that can attack.
He is taking 6 damage though, so Garrick's gonna fall down to 4. But I mean, as they always say, it's the only
Gotta
life point that matters is the last one. So as long as you're at
Yeah.
more than one, you can still win.
Well, and look at that. We've got the escape.
The sleep, yeah.
Yeah, that this is where it would come up, and there's not a better creature in format to hit in this case than Ninja the Deep Hours. Like that is the best possible target if you're just tapping something down. But there is more from Garrick. He is relentless, as they say.
Very, very relentless. You know what else is relentless? Sleep of the Dead. Every single turn. Yeah, I mean, Jake's eventually going to run out of cards in the graveyard. Really needs to find a Terror or a Cryptic Serpent. Okay. There's a hacker. Garrick is hacking. Somebody check in PC.
These popper games have always been, they've all been very back and forth. That's for sure. Garrick is at just 4 life, but does have 2 attackers here. And even if you escape the sleep again from Jake, you're still taking damage at this point. You're really not catching up unless you actually find a way to get onto the board. But it looks like that is at least how he's starting, is with another sleep. And he just has to pass. So, all right, Garrick trying to close it out here. Looks like both of his teammates, who are each up a game, are still locked in game 2, at least from what we can see. So he knows that if he's able to take this down, his team will just be 1 game away from the title here in Lansing. And he's adding additional bodies to the board here. Here's a Miscreant. Here's the Of One Mind we talked about, one of the best divinations ever printed.
This has been a really, really good game to watch. There was a period of time where it seemed like early on Garrett could not get anything established. Sam had the gut shot, had the sleep for a couple of key turns, and Sam was able to deploy the one of those early big monsters, and it looked like Jake was kind of just cruising from there. And Garrick just was able to just get some chip shots in, draw a couple cards here and there, eventually find these 2 bind the monsters. Took 11 damage to do it, but was able to answer those large threats and just kind of closing the finish line with a lot of these small flyers. But yeah, the key here
There
for
it is.
Jake. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Well, there you go. What an ending to a match. Is just kind of the poke you to death is what it was. But that gets you there. Garrick Alford taking down the victory over Jake Coonan. And you know what? I don't know which match did it, but that was it. It appears to be over based on what we can see. So you know what, Garrick? You won it for your team. Congratulations.
Yeah, I guess we didn't have the graphic updated, but there you go. Will and his credentials.
Welcome back into the booth, everybody. I'm Corbin Hostler, joined by Devin Doomwake O'Donnell. And you know what? I can already see our winners heading to the interview booth, Will and his credentials. So here we actually have an update from the production staff. Shout out to everyone making this happen over the course of all of these events. But all of those matches happened to finish at around the exact same time, or at least 2 of the 3 did. And that is how you had such a wild finish there. But you know what? That is a victory, and it looks like the winning team is about ready down in the booth. Hello, congratulations. Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thanks so much.
Yeah, well, tell us how that ended there. Did we were watching the popper match. We watched the victory. Was that the last one, or did everything kind of happen at once there?
I guess kind of. I
Yeah.
think I won just before Will did, but Will won, and then
Garrick
we
was
looked
still
over at
playing.
Garrick, yeah, we were like, that's match. But I think
All
you
right,
won
well,
too,
congratulations, y'all.
Thank you.
so clean sweep on that, I guess.
The game was not over, but it did look like it was
Oh, okay.
leading that way. But yeah.
Yeah, let's actually talk about the popper first, because that we've been focusing a lot on popper over the course of today's event, just because it seemed like there was most interesting things going on. And your deck, Garrick, here, it seemed like it was basically designed to beat decks like your opponents. Talk to me about like how that matchup went and just like the cheap threats, all of what's going on here.
So the fairies deck is weird because it's like the blue deck that beats other blue decks. So it's very good at like trying to get to the board early. They can't counter ninjutsu, so ninjutsu is able to just push through. It does get into that awkward spot where if they have multiple terrors, they can get problematic. Where I don't know if you saw, I discarded like the third bind because I'm at 4. Like it's not,
Yeah.
it's
Can't
not
cast
doing
it anymore.
anything. Yeah. So, but once I had the 2 in control, and then it was just more to top decking, and he had to use the sleeps. Like it was looking very good for me. It was looking very good.
Moving over, we also watched quite a bit of the modern match, and what was really impressive out of that was how long it went, almost, right? How much interaction there was.
Yeah, it was just 2 games. The first game was very unfortunate for my opponent who had to mold it into 4, but still was a very competitive fight. It was I was firing on all cylinders with my interaction, 2 consigns packed, and it was a hard one. But game 2 was a little bit cleaner. I got to put a Galta and a Xenagos in play for lethal pretty quickly, so that wrapped up a little sooner. But the first game was a slog.
Well, we were really impressed by that first one, where your opponent mulligans, but then presents like a turn 3 or turn 4 win, and it was kind of putting your cards together in ways that maybe people wouldn't have expected between the pact and the consigns there, to pull out a victory in a match that a lot of people wouldn't have really expected much interaction in.
Yeah, it's a combo deck. It has a lot of interaction, mostly for protecting itself, but can be pretty offensive too, or defensive, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you basically use the pact and negation consign as just a force of will, right?
Yeah.
And that can set up just being able to stop anything your opponent does, and that was huge in that first game. All right, let's go to standard. Sam, you got to talk to me about this brand new, like real spicy brew that you brought today. It's got blue and red cards, and it's got this card called the VV. I don't know, people probably haven't heard of this card. Why did you bring this deck? It seems so bad.
Yeah, no one else was playing this deck this week. Well, except for like
Rightfully so.
What, 6, 7 mirrors I played today? I don't know. But it had to be the only other 7 people in the room, right?
Yeah.
Bad luck.
No. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about the VV deck. It's
so
busted.
broken.
It's so broken. And I don't know. I played so many mirrors today. Like, I don't know. I still don't even really know how to play the mirror. It's just a lot of like, there's not a ton of like huge decision points because it's like, oh, they have an 8/8 attacking you. I guess I flood maw that, right? Or I die. There's not a whole lot of in between. I don't know. There are a lot of like crucial points, I guess, in the mirror, but it doesn't always feel like that because the games are either like very, very close or one person is just so far like ahead, and it feels unwinnable, right?
Yeah, the one thing I did want to mention is the deck list, because I believe, Will, you handed the deck list to Sam, your deck from yesterday, right? Okay, so you maybe have a little bit of input on this as well. No Quantum Riddlers. Talk to me about that. I don't know. I don't think we talked to Will yesterday about the removal of Riddler, but no Riddlers. Meringues in the main deck. What was the decision behind that?
I think Riddler is great. Like, it's not a bad card, and I think it's honestly got a little bit of an edge in the mirror against Meringue, but I like Meringue because it's really the only card that lets you progress at an instant speed. It has a lot of synergy with the deck where both Riddler and Meringue do. Meringue is a larger body for slightly more mana, but directly affecting the board right away because the deck is so light on, I shouldn't say super light, but adds that additional bit of removal. And since I'm playing Wild Ride, and a lot of people are too, but Wild Ride pairs really well with Meringue just for surprise, 9 damage, if not more. And I think it has a lot of synergy, but I don't think Riddler's bad either. I think both are great. I just prefer Meringue.
Yeah, totally fair.
I think
we spot the flex slot shirts. Would you all anyone of y'all want to shout out? Any teammates, anything like that you want to get out there?
Shout out to George, Jabor,
Jabber.
the man.
and of course Eric, Zach, and John all came down here as well to, I guess up. It's not really down, but anyway, they came, hung out with us. We had a great time, and of course everyone on Team Flex Slot. We're always grinding on the Discord, having a great time.
Yeah, well, it was a great run this weekend by all of you. Congratulations
Thank you.
again on the win.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Congrats, guys.
Yeah. Well, welcome back in, everybody, to the booth. I'm Corbin Hosler, Devin Doomwake O'Donnell here to close it out with you. This was a great tournament all around. The team events, you can't top them, and this one lived up to it.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see a ton of amazing action here today. I think the big takeaway for me here is Popper looks awesome.
It
We
did.
saw a ton of Popper on camera today, a lot of sweet decks, and I've been thinking about some things to do on stream over the next couple of days. Waiting, I'm not trying to play standard anymore, so maybe I'll have to mix some Popper into the mix because that format that looked like a lot of fun.
It did. It looked pretty interesting. Well, I think that wraps it up for us here in Lansing, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And thank you to everybody who came before us, the commentators this weekend, the crew behind the scenes all weekend, everyone who made it out to Lansing. Make sure to come out to our next events as well. So thank you all for hanging out with us. Check out the NRG series socials to find out where we're heading to next, which, by the way, is in Illinois. We'll see you there in September. So everybody, we will see you next time. Thanks for hanging out.